In this video, I'll show you how to add a forecast to your analysis. A forecast can help you make data-driven predictions about future values based on historical trends. We'll be using the monthly on-time performance data from the Bureau of Transportation Statistics. It contains the monthly totals for domestic flights in the United States. We've got information about total flights scheduled and the percentage of those flights that were on time, delayed, canceled, or diverted. Flight operations are highly seasonal, and Tableau can automatically detect recurring seasonal patterns and extend them forward. We'll build a forecast to predict the number of monthly flights into the future. Okay, so first, let's build a line chart to show the total scheduled flights per month. The date field is currently stored as a string, so I'll click on the data type icon to the left of the field name and then change it to a date. Next, I want to select Date and Flight Operations from the data pane in the left. Recall that you can select two fields by using Control or Command on your keyboard. And then I'll go over to the Show Me button and expand it. Let's select the type of chart called a line continuous. Tableau builds a line chart for us, and it defaults to a sum for our measure. And that works well for showing total flights. We can see a dip downwards for 2020, and as you can probably guess, that was the year the COVID-19 pandemic started. Afterwards, flight operations have been steadily increasing each year, but we're still a little bit below the number of flights that were observed pre-pandemic in 2019. So what happened in 2025? Well, that's a partial year of data. We want to drill down to investigate further, so let's click the plus sign on Date. We can go from year to quarter to month, and that's as far down as the date hierarchy has a data available, because this is monthly data. If you were to drill down further into week and day, you would see that nothing changes since we have monthly data. Seeing that monthly trend makes it even more obvious that we had a large decrease in flights for May of 2020. I also notice some seasonal trends in here. For example, we have less flights in February each year. Also, we have the most flights in July and August each year. Our data set starts in January of 2015 and it ends in June of 2025. We want to forecast the number of flights that we should expect in the future, and we can do that by going over to the Analytics tab in the left, and this is where you add statistical and analytical features directly into your visualization to help explain or enhance them. Under the Model category, find Forecast. You can double-click it or you can drag and drop it onto the trend line. The legend is automatically added over on the right side, and it shows the trend line based on actual data in dark blue, and then the medium blue line shows estimate, which is the forecast. So what's that even lighter blue line that's around our forecast here? Well, that's called a 95% prediction interval. It's the range where Tableau estimates that 95% of future data points are likely to fall, given the historical patterns that it sees in the data and the statistical model used. Tableau uses a statistical model for forecasting called exponential smoothing. The point is that forecasts aren't exact, so this interval here shows that there's uncertainty around the predicted values. Wider bands means more uncertainty, and smaller bands means less uncertainty. Let's interpret the forecast for June of 2025 in more detail. So select that mark for that month. You can right-click on it, and then in the menu, navigate to Forecast, and then Describe Forecast. The information that comes up shows us the forecast for June 2025, and it shows that our forecast is approximately 607,000 flights, plus or minus around 89,000 flights. So Tableau is saying that based on the past data and model, there's a 95% chance that actual flights in the future for this month will fall between 518 and 696,000 flights. Looking at some of the other information about the forecast, we can see that Tableau has recognized that there's a seasonal pattern. It's a pattern of 12 months, a 12-month cycle. The seasonal effect shows that it predicts a high number of flights in July and a low number in February. And then the contribution values for trend and seasonality here describe how much of the variation in the data the forecasting model attributes to each component. So the forecasting model found that all of our predictive patterns are explained by seasonal cycles. It's not using any long-term upward or downward trend. That's what the 0% here for trend means. So in other words, the average number of flights stay mostly stable over time in the observed data. Quality indicates how well the forecast fits the actual data, and it has possible values of good, okay, and poor. We see here that we have a good quality forecast. This link at the bottom will take you to the Tableau website where you can learn more about this forecast summary, including some of the formulas used in the background. I'll close this for now. Tableau allows you to modify the forecast in several ways, and I'll show you one way now. So select any mark in the forecast. You can do a right click and then in the menu navigate to Forecast and then Forecast Options. The forecast length is set to automatic, but we can control that. In general, you usually don't want to forecast too far out because there would be so much uncertainty. For example, let's change the option to exactly and then keep bumping up the number of years from 1 to 2 to 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then as you will see that happening, you'll notice over here that the prediction interval keeps increasing because there's so much uncertainty that far out. Let's go back and set it to 1 year. And then click OK. You might have noticed that the shaded band is quite large. The events of the pandemic added a lot of uncertainty to flight forecasting, and we may decide that we want to ignore those years. We can tell Tableau to do that by adding a filter. So I'll go to Date in the Data pane, select it, select the drop-down caret, and go to Show Filter. Tableau has added a year filter for us. First, let's uncheck the box for all, and then just include 2024 and 2025. This way you can see what happens when you don't have enough data to make a very detailed forecast, and you just get a flat forecast line without any seasonality. We can select any mark in the forecast, right-click, and then in the menu, navigate to Forecast, and then Describe Forecast. Quality indicates that the forecast is poor and does not fit the actual data very well. Next, let's select all the years again, and then remove the pandemic years. Let's uncheck the boxes for 2020 and 2021. Whenever you do so, notice that the 95% prediction interval gets much smaller than before. This indicates that there's less uncertainty without those years. Again, let's select any mark in the forecast, right-click, navigate to Forecast, Describe Forecast. The quality indicates that the forecast is good. As an alternative, we may want to use only post-pandemic data instead. We could do that by easily removing 2015 through 2019. So I'll remove all of those years. And then notice that our 95% prediction interval gets even smaller. The point is that filtering the data will impact our forecast, and we can see that in our forecast for June 2025. Again, let's go ahead and select the mark for that month, do a right-click, go to Forecast, and then Describe Forecast. The information shows us that our forecast now for June 2025 is plus or minus around 13,000 flights. That's a more narrow interval than we had before. Also, quality indicates that the forecast is okay, so the fit to the data is not quite as good as it was before. It's up to you which forecast you prefer, but I will say that since the pandemic, there's been a lot of debate in forecasting, analytics, and operations planning about how much historical data should be trusted when making predictions. The pandemic caused a sudden massive break in historical patterns. So if you use too little history, then you risk basing forecasts on noise. But if you use too much history, you risk including outdated patterns that may not apply anymore. Aviation, retail, healthcare, and many other industries have all had to rethink their forecasting windows. Since the pandemic, choosing the right time horizon for historical data has become a central forecasting challenge. I'll end this video here, but be sure to save your workbook.